Welcome to New York Got Game. Boom shakalaka.
All right, people, welcome back to New York Got Game Knicks Weekly Live. It's your boy Dexter Henry, joined by Bryan Fonseca. We hope everybody had themselves a great Thanksgiving weekend. I know we did. We saw you guys Thanksgiving weekend. We did this thing on Friday after the Charlotte game on Black Friday. That was a lot of fun. But the Knicks, they've been doing some winning since then. They got 3 wins in a row. They've won 8 out of their last 10. Their most recent win coming against the Magic on Tuesday night. Big NBA Cup game. The Knicks sweep Group A of the NBA Cup, and they did it with a very impressive victory, 121-106 over the Orlando Magic. And look, this was not close for quite some time, folks. The Knicks dominated this game offensively. There was all this talk going into this game. The Magic's defense vaunted #1 in the league, one of the best defenses in the NBA. Well, the Knicks, they're the best offense in the NBA, and offense won. Offense won here. 121-106. So a really impressive performance by the Knicks in that game. I think one of my favorite moments for the game, Bryan, and I saw you tweet this out, yeah, and I knew you would love this moment, was Karl-Anthony Towns backing down. It was Franz Wagner. Was it Wagner or Mo Wagner?
It was Mo Wagner.
Mo Wagner.
That would not be Franz Wagner. Mo Wagner's a different level of physicality.
Clearly fouls him. And Karl-Anthony Towns is annoyed, gave the ref the annoyed look, then spun fadeaway baseline and buries the fadeaway. And it was beautiful. One of my favorite moments from the game. And there, what did you make of what you saw from the Knicks in this game against what was a very good defense? They've been playing very well, had won, 6 games in a row heading into that contest. Mm-hmm. And the Knicks took care of business at home, man.
A Magic team that has been playing just fine without Paolo Banchero, who's going to be back soon. And an Orlando Magic team who's had a very good start to the season. I actually was concerned a little bit, Dex, because I saw the Magic come out to a 14-6 lead.
Oh, early in the game.
Yeah.
Got you.
14-6 lead, and I was like, oh, is Orlando going to have this kind of shooting performance? They made, I think, all of their first 3 threes attempted, and then they shot 6 of 36 the rest of the game from 3 and kind of fell off from there. The one thing I did notice was 14-6. 14-6 may have been the Magic's biggest lead in this game also. Jalen Brunson, we talked about his leadership qualities. That may have been over the phone or last week's episode. I don't remember. But Jalen Brunson gets to a floater and sort of shuts down this early Magic surge. And then the very next play was when he gets the screen and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope has to make a decision. Am I going to go over and sort of commit here, or am I going to just play for the switch, hope for the best that my big Wendell Carter Jr. in this case can survive with Jalen Brunson? And I guess multiple things happen at the same time because he commits, Jalen Brunson crosses him, and then Wendell Carter Jr. has to do the dance with Jalen Brunson anyway. Jalen Brunson gets the oohs and ahs from the crowd, hits the shot, and from there, the game kind of just changed, right? The Knicks go on this run. They have 11 unanswered points in the first quarter, and they've never really looked back. Like, the Magic have a couple of, like, smaller runs or whatever the case may be, but the Knicks really build on that lead in the second and third quarter in particular, where they really put this thing away, and that sort of sparked it. Like, there were a bunch of different instances where you knew they were firing all cylinders. That was one of them. Another one being in a couple different instances, you see Josh Hart and OG Anunoby just decide to take Jonathan Isaac one-on-one. Jonathan Isaac, who's one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. And ultimately, like, you know, you have Deuce McBride relocating off of misses and just errant passes where Jericho Sims, like, he kind of like mishandles a pass on the inside. He looks over. Deuce McBride is all of a sudden relocating. Wide open 3. Like, Deuce McBride had another great game. And this was a game, Dex, where if you want to call it this, the core 4 of the Knicks, we know who that is. That's Karl-Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson, OG Anunoby, and Mikal Bridges, all score between 18 and 23 points in this game each. Shoot a collective 31 of 56 from the field. And when your star players do that, you're just going to win damn near every time.
Yeah, it's really tough to beat all 5 Knicks starters in this game in double figures. Out of that core 4, you left out Josh Hart, who's the 5th starter. Obviously, he had a triple double. He had a triple double in this one. Yeah, with 11 points. 13 boards, and 10 assists. Josh Hart, as I keep saying, continues to do Josh Hart things. Listen, I think when you look at this, people will say, oh, it's fine. The Knicks also, and we'll get to this a little bit later, this is not a great offensive Magic team. We understand that. They're a very good defensive team, and they had problems with the Knicks. The Knicks have had some issues with teams that are very switch heavy and can switch everything 1 through 5. Those teams have given their offense a bit of trouble this season. When you look at the Rockets, when you look at the Celtics, and the Mavericks are another team, I would say those teams have given the Knicks a little bit of trouble, teams that can switch everything 1 through 5. But this was a good defensive team in Orlando, and the Knicks handled them pretty easy. The offense looked very fluid. And yes, I was I wouldn't say I was concerned early on because you brought that up, Bryan, but I do think that I remember when they got down, they hit those threes. Contavious Caldwell Pope looks hot early on. I'm thinking to myself, okay, how does this team respond? That was my thing. You get punched in the mouth. You're a boxing guy. We both love boxing. You get punched in the mouth. It's about how you respond. And I think how the Knicks responded in that way at home, also knowing they had to win this game to pretty much advance. They didn't have a lot going in their favor in terms of point differential. So they had to win this game at home to advance in the NBA Cup. And yes, I don't know about you guys, but here I care about the NBA Cup. Okay, I care a lot about the NBA Cup. I like playing for other trophies.
Yep.
Hey, folks, you don't just have to play for one trophy. It's fine. I like the NBA Cup.
Well, but the reason why you and I like this is because you're a soccer fan. I'm an international basketball guy, where overseas in Europe and South America and Africa and Asia, they have these tournaments within the season that are for these. Everyone understands it's not the championship, but it's something. And ultimately, you're competitive. You want to win more money. You just want to win, period. You want to beat your peers at something. And, going to Vegas and the whole thing, like it's pretty enticing for players. And I think it's going to grow over time. We also just really quickly, because we mentioned Cat and the viral moment with Mo Wagner, where he just kind of gives him the face and just makes that super clean turnaround jumper. Like, imagine if he would have missed. But I want to give Karl-Anthony Towns props because of those 4 guys that I mentioned, he's the only one that shot under 50%. But I think this is a bonus because Mo Wagner is the type of dude where if you play like a video game, if you watch a documentary, like, and you're watching this up and coming center tell their story about like, yo, when I was in the league, this, that, and the third, in my rookie year, I had to play this guy. And they don't talk about the stars. The first guy they talk about is like Mo Wagner, where he roughs you up in that game. You know what I mean? Yeah. He elbows you in the back. He damn near puts you in a headlock. He hooks you. He knees you, all the dirty stuff, right? But Karl-Anthony Towns, to his credit, he puts up 18 shots in a game where some other bigs might feel that physicality. And tonight's not the night. I'm going 6 for 11. I'm packing it in. I'm not putting up a volume of shots or whatever the case would be. Towns was aggressive, and he shot the most from. I think he shot the most out of every Knick in this game. So I think that's encouraging to see because we know what was being said about Karl-Anthony Towns once the trade was made.
And we're going to get into more of that later. Thank you for everybody rocking with us. If you're watching on Twitter, watching on YouTube, watching on Facebook, hit that like button, share, hit the subscribe button if you're there too. We appreciate all of you guys. If you have any questions or comments for us, please let us know. Thank you for joining us on New York Got Games, the Knicks Weekly Live. Jonathan Macri, the Dean of Knicks Film School, he'll be joining us around 7:45, so in about 5 minutes or so. We'll have J-Mac joining us, one of my favorite people to talk Knicks basketball with, joining us here. Will be a good one. Now, before we get J-Mac on here, one of the other things we got to talk about is the Knicks can get a little healthier soon, okay? Precious Achiuwa close to returning. He is listed right now as questionable for tomorrow's game against the Hornets. So Precious Achiuwa, much needed reinforcement off the bench, another big that can help. I talked to somebody who helped recruit him in high school. My guy Peter Way was on with me a couple weeks ago and talked about how the fact that he believes that he can really help here. I'm excited to see Precious back. He was playing good in the preseason before he got hurt. What do you think he can help and bring to this team if he comes back and is indeed 100% healthy, Bryan?
Size, switchable defense, interior defense, potential rebounding, like all the things that you kind of think this team needs from just a defensive standpoint and just a depth standpoint. Like they need depth. They need all the things I mentioned just from a basketball standpoint. And then functionally, like, Jericho Sims needs some help. And some would say Jericho Sims doesn't need to be playing that much. So I think he's been fine lately, but you want to see Precious Achiuwa out there. You want to see Precious Achiuwa out there because of the versatility he could provide. The defense is going to get better. Jay Quaza, shout out to him in the comments, Keith Watkins as well. And anybody else who wants to drop a comment, feel free. We will put them on throughout the show.
What's up, Jay Quaza?
Jay makes an interesting point where, and I was going down this road. Precious comes back, the defense gets better. He's baby Iheart to me. So baby Isaiah Hartenstein. I kind of get it, different type of big, I feel like, but, can give you like some of that stability that you want from a big who can come off the bench. And, he may spot start at points this season just because like the nature of the NBA. So I think he's going to be a critical piece.
Yeah, I think he's critical. I see what you're saying there, Jay Quaza, too, right? Iheart was very skilled at rebounding the ball, especially on the offensive glass. The Knicks don't need offensive rebounds as much as they do this year. You know why? Because they actually make shots. They're just a better, more efficient shooting team. But where I think he can help a little bit is he's a much better passing big than Sims off the bench. I think that stuff kind of matters. Help him pick and roll. He just gives a little bit more to his offensive game. And this is not to get on Sims, because I actually think Sims was fine, and we'll talk about Sims later in the show. I think Sims has been fine, especially over these about last 10 to 11 games. He's been really fine in terms of protecting the paint and rebounding the ball. But I do think Precious Achiuwa will help a lot defensively with this team and help just even a little bit of scoring off the bench. Just gives them another look, and I think that's helpful for this Knicks team going forward, just to help them on the defensive end, also on the offensive end across the bench. So I see the baby Iheart comparison there. I do understand that. And it's a good point. Jay Quaza again talks about OG and Bridges can focus solely on the perimeter defense. Why I think this is such a good point is you've got OG in particular, who's more, I would say, the quarterback of the defense. You want to say he's been allowed to roam and move a lot. He's had to cover a lot of ground. If you watch some defensive possessions, especially when the Knicks have struggled, OG's covering a lot of ground, roaming sometimes inside, back to somebody in the outside and perimeter. I think when you have someone like Precious there, you have a little bit more trust than you do with someone like Sims out there, or even in lineups where Cat's out there. So it's really interesting. I think Precious is a good fit for this team, and very intrigued to see him come back. It just gives the Knicks another body, which they need. Also, guys, less minutes for Tibbs to play some of these guys. I know it makes some of the Knicks fans happy too. They talk about the minutes police and how Tibbs can play a lot of guys, but that'll be helpful too in just, having those guys play a little bit of less minutes. And then, what another thing I'm intrigued in, Bryan, you can talk on this too. Precious, one of the things I was hoping to see from him this year was how can he stretch his game? Can he stretch his game out a little bit more to the 3-point line? Can he shoot a little bit better from out there to help with some spacing? We saw some of that at points last year. I think he shot about 28%. What do you think he can do for this team's offense if he gets better as a 3-point shooter?
Yeah, people forget like he shot threes in college as well, and he's never been like a knockdown 3-point shooter. He just has the capability of stretching it from the field, but even from three, like he was 13 of 40 in college in his 1 year in Memphis. So like it's not something that I think is going to be like he's going to kill from there all of a sudden.
Right.
With the Heat, he didn't really shoot any. With Toronto, he was stretching from the floor a little bit more. They wanted him to do that a little bit more. With the Heat, he was playing the 5, so like it was different. He shot 56 of 156 from 3, so like that's actually decent volume. That's basically 2 a game from what we were looking at that season, and he was making 36%. But he hasn't come close to that since. So that seems like it's the outlier. And I would say like, hey, maybe he can do it, but I don't know if it's the most important thing about Precious Achiuwa's game that they're going to need, so to speak.
Yeah, I don't think it's most important, but I think if he can develop it, to your point too, I think that could be good. Now we have Styles James Jones checking in on Facebook, who says no Pablo Banchero. Who's that?
I forgot this was on Facebook. I ain't gonna lie.
Yo, we have any Pablos in the NBA? Do we? I didn't. I like that.
I would know that. Right. I would know that.
I would hope so.
Yeah, I don't know if they're definitely might be in the G
Now,
League.
Styles, we understand you are trying to say that there's no Paolo Banchero. We understand that. But let me ask you a question, sir. Why are you out here trying to rain on the parade? Why? Why are you out here trying to rain? We know there's no Paolo Banchero. The Magic have been playing well. They've won 6 games. Is Styles a Magic fan? That's what I'd like to know. Is Styles a Magic fan here? That's what I'd like to know. Like, man, out here raining on parade. You know what? It was a good win for the Knicks. I understand there's no Paolo Banchero. It's a good win. The Magic have been playing well. They'd won 6 straight games. Their defense is the best in the league. And you know, you gotta get the name right. That's all I'm saying.
Our producer Jeff notes Pablo Prigioni.
Yes, I remember. That's a Pablo I remember.
I looked this up. He is still in the league. He is still on the Minnesota Timberwolves coaching staff. He's an assistant. I remember he was an assistant with the Nets at one point after. Former Knick. I would not say Knick legend, but former Knick nonetheless. I think the no Paolo Banchero thing is interesting, but like, you know, we're gonna see Paolo Banchero later this month.
That's correct.
Assuming he doesn't have a setback, which you hope he does not. There are some people in analytical nerd world who don't think he's as impactful as the raw numbers would suggest he might be. We're going to see what happens when he comes back. Franz Wagner has sort of emerged into being like an all-star, but I think Paolo's still going to raise their ceiling. I just wonder, you know, now
he was playing good before he got hurt.
Right. And now they're going to have to figure out, okay, like Paolo Banchero's back. And I think it's going to be a little more your turn, my turn. Like that could be a little clunky at the start of it. And also like Anthony Black has gotten more minutes. You want to keep him in the rotation. He's one of your young guys. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. And this is why I thought the early shooting yesterday could have been dangerous. He started off the season very poorly. He's a little better lately. He's had some big games lately, but started off the season really poorly from a shooting perspective. And yesterday on defense wasn't his greatest game either. So the rematch will tell us a lot. And also like we will asterisk some of this stuff because it is December. We're gonna have different conversations in like February, March, and April. But I still think last night's win was, I think it was a big win for them.
Yeah, I think it's a solid win. And Styles, we're joking with you. I hear what you're saying. I understand you're a Knicks fan. You're realistic. No, don't have to apologize. It's all jokes and love here. We appreciate you checking in, Styles. Thank you. And you're right that Bryan makes a point that we will look at this more later in the season. We will see how this is and all of that. And you know, you take everything in stride. I do think it's a quality win for the Knicks. I don't think you apologize for any of these wins at this time. I don't think you do that at all. And Styles, you know, I agree with you. It's a good win. But joining us now is my guy. He is the dean of Knicks Film School. One of the guys I love to talk Knicks hoops with. He's got his microphone ready. He's not holding it like Dirk. He's all ready. No technical issues, unlike Andrew Claudio when he came here and tried to blame me. Shout out to Andrew. Love Andrew. J-Mac, what's going on? How you doing, bro?
I'm sorry I'm a few minutes late. This is my third consecutive podcast or audio recording of some kind. So I am embodying, or I'm trying to embody, one of the Knicks who has to play 40 plus minutes a game for Tom Thibodeau, making sure I could cross the finish line with a head of steam here.
Well, you are one of the hardest working people I know in terms of content
as are you.
Creation. Well, thank you. As is Bryan. This is all hardworking people here up here all the time. We're working as hard as we can. Let me ask you this, because I'm not sure I know this about you, considering I don't think we've ever spoken about this, and I don't think we did last year. Do you care about the NBA Cup?
No.
You do not care about the NBA Cup. Okay. That was very succinct.
No, I actually Alan Sepinwall, obviously America's TV critic.
Love Alan Sepinwall,
who's a great Knicks fan. He tweeted he skeeted. Got to get that right. Skeeted a question at me the other day, like, do you think it's a big deal, like, for the team or whatever? And I responded to him like, not even really in jest, where I was like, if it was up to me, they would beat the Magic, because we asked it before the Magic game. They would beat the Magic. They would go to the NBA Cup. They would win both their NBA Cup games, because those count for your record, right? NBA standings, the whole thing. And then instead of playing in the final, they would rest and they would preserve their bodies and just go, to the next game. That's because it's like, what does it matter to like the team's ultimate success? I don't know. Does it matter? Does it matter to you guys?
Okay, so Bryan and I were talking about this a little bit before, and I always like to bring this caveat about why I don't care. Stefan Bondi asked me this too. Care is a strong word, right?
Yeah.
Like, I understand that this is not the NBA championship, but I'm a big fan of European soccer. I'm a big Liverpool fan. Some people know this from the tweets. I'm used to seeing guys play for other trophies. It does not bother me. I think it's cool. I think it's something nice to play for. If the Knicks win the NBA Cup, cool. Do I expect the parade? Let me just say this. I've said this before. If you are outside Madison Square Garden, parading, doing anything wild, any of that bing bong energy after NBA Cup, you're doing too much. Okay, you can be happy that they won. You can think it's nice. It can. It's all good. I'm here for this. It's a nice thing. I think it's meaningful to some young teams or some teams that haven't played together to get experience in terms of playing some elimination games. I think it's cool. That's kind of where it is for me. Like, I'm cool with it. If the Knicks won, would I smile about it? Sure.
I would be very happy about it. I would try to talk myself into the fact that it is a significant accomplishment. But I'm telling you right now, I'm fairly certain their first game after the Cup schedule is over, whenever that is against the Timberwolves.
It is 19th.
I think it's the first one.
You're correct.
Where the Timberwolves are going through whatever they're going through. If like they win the Cup and they come out in that game and they are in a close game in the fourth quarter, and then they drag across the finish line and Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo hands it to them en route to a fourth quarter come from behind victory for Minnesota, I know how that post game is going to go. And people interacting with me that night are not going to be like, it's fine, we won the NBA Cup. They're going to be like, to hell with that thing. I wish we would have had more rest because they just lost the regular season game. That's how I would imagine that would go.
You know what? I hope that happens. Not that I hope that they lose. I hope, because if it happens, I'm going to be right there. And I'm going to send you a super chat. I got you, John. I'm going to send you a nice super chat just to cheer you up. That's all. Bryan, you like it though. I know, Bryan.
I'm not the greatest person to ask because I'm out here purchasing like courtside 1891 to watch FIBA AmeriCup qualifiers during the NBA season 2 weeks ago. I was watching Robert Covington play against my Puerto Rican squad, and they beat us up, but we got it back against Cuba in Cuba. Did. Look, all I'm going to say about the NBA Cup is this: I think there are a lot of elements to this that people are just unfamiliar with. And as Dexter mentioned, fan of European soccer, I'm a fan of international basketball. And I admire when we get these little tournaments sprinkled into EuroLeague and Euro Cup and things of that nature during the season. And people have an understanding this isn't the championship, but it's a championship. And ultimately, if you're a player, if you're a competitor, you want to compete for something. Not just money, but money is also a part of it, especially if you're like a Tyler Kolek or you're a Jericho Sims, who we've talked about extensively, who's in the last year of his deal, who's playing for an extension, who does not have one. We don't know if he's going to get one, probably wants an extra $500K or whatever the case may be. And it's just something to win. But NBA fans, lifelong NBA fans, aren't conditioned to think it matters because this literally just got here. And the Lakers didn't set the greatest precedent because they won, and then
and that's what J-Man is worried about. I know
Lakers and also the Pacers, because we have not seen that Tyrese Halliburton basically since that NBA Cup, damn near. So so there are a couple things from that perspective, but that could also be like the NBA season is too long, whereas the best teams in EuroLeague don't play even 82 games in a season.
Yeah, that's a factor.
My approach to this is completely closed-minded. I'm the first person to admit it. Like I have not been fully open-minded about this. If it catches on and like it starts to mean something to the players, like then if it means something to them, it'll mean something to me. I'm not sure how much it means to them, which I guess is my qualm right now. You know what I mean?
So J-Mac, I will say this. That point you made, I think, is a good one because that's how I felt last year, even though I will say, somewhat excited for this, right? Because I'm used to, as Bryan said, to these sort of in-season tournaments, watching Liverpool football. I was like, this only goes as far as the players. If the players care about it, people will care about it. Now, I thought you saw effort from the players, and I think they do care enough about it that it's been a good product and it's been fine. They're going on the final nights and the quarterfinal games and the semis games were mostly competitive last year. However, I think the point you're making is how much does the care and want to win this go past these 2 seasons? What are we talking about in this 3 years from now, 7 years from now? And I think that'll be very telling because then there'll be a generation of kids who are probably in high school right now watching this and saying, oh, yo, that's something I like. I think that's dope. I want to play for. And if that happens, I think it's cool. Maybe it doesn't. We'll see.
I think the cup will matter more in certain circumstances. Like, for instance, just for argument's sake, if you get like, obviously I'm rooting for this, but like, if you got the Rockets versus the Magic in the cup finals, no, I think that would matter a lot to those 2 fan bases. And I think that might matter a lot to those 2 teams because those are 2 of the youngest teams in the sport. And they're, you know, and I think it would be like maybe a sign of validation. But on the flip side of that, if you got Knicks Thunder, and I'm putting the Hartenstein stuff aside, although I think that would play a role. But like, these are 2 teams that are trying to win the title this year,
right?
And I think that they would look at that matchup as like, okay, let's see what we both got, you know. And they would both, and that, to me, that would probably make it matter a little bit more if it was like the Knicks versus like another contender.
I like that point. I think the matchup in the final and does affect the juice behind it. I do think it's a good point.
Is it also the courts? Because a lot of the courts, I think the courts don't really help because a lot of the courts are bad. Like the Lakers is piss yellow. We've seen some that are just blood red, and they're like, it's tough to look at aesthetically. The Charlotte Hornets have probably the best NBA Cup court, like aesthetically. Well, it's beautiful.
Their regular court is probably one of the best in the
NBA. Too, so. But I don't think the courts also help, and the presentation kind of matters.
And it's funny because they've toned down the colors a little bit this year, and I still think there's more tweaking they need to do. Like, you know what I actually think? I don't think we need the colors. I think you just have the big trophy in the middle, and that's fine. I understand
more neutral tones.
I understand the need to have the different courts to differentiate the games. I'm fine with that. I don't think we need all the colors. That's all I'm saying.
There is a part of me that wonders after, like, they'll give this a runway, and like I think it's gotten enough attention and people care about it enough that they won't do what I'm about to say. But like, I wonder if we ever get to the point where winning the NBA Cup gets you some tangible advantage for the rest of the, like a tiebreaker or something. You know what I mean? Because right now there's just that's not there.
I'm not opposed to that. I think it'd be good. With all that being said, to move it along, because granted, I just needed to know how J-Mac felt about it because I don't think I.
Sorry, I didn't know if you wanted me if that was too much on the NBA Cup.
No. We're good. The Knicks do advance to the quarterfinals. I assume you have some excitement about that, especially in this matchup. They will play the Hawks, who all Knicks fans love because Trae Young is their favorite player. What do you think of this matchup? It's a nice kind of sort of sexy one for the Knicks fans to come in and chant what they will chant to Trae Young that I'm not going to say in the show, but they will chant what they chant. If you've been at the Garden, you know. What do you think of this matchup, and what do you expect from the Knicks next Wednesday?
I mean, I expect they'll come out and take the game, extremely seriously. And I think I think they'll care. Like I'm, I could sit here and be like, yeah, whatever, it is what it is. No, I think they'll absolutely care about it. I mean, the Hawks, I feel like I've watched a decent bit of the Hawks this year because I find them to be a very interesting team in terms of they have obviously Trae Young still, who's not old, but he's like in the middle of his career. And then they have this really fun, interesting young core around him with Jalen Johnson, Zachary Reese-Shea, and now Dyson Daniels. What a trade that may turn out to be. But like, it reminds me, not like one for one, but in terms of how they're built now, it reminds me certainly more of the Hawks team that Trey, that beat the Knicks in the playoffs and that went to the Eastern Conference Finals, because it's like Trae Young plus shooting plus defense. And let's see how far we can get with that. The funny thing is that Trae Young hasn't even had a great year, and they're 500, which is, I think, a lot of people, what a lot of people is better than what they thought. And that's just because I think their supporting cast is just, it feels, I mean, you can't call Jalen Johnson a supporting cast person now. He's like, he's in the running for certainly most improved
player.
Yeah. So I think the Hawks are like just good enough that like you have to respect them. Obviously, they beat the Knicks once this year. So, yeah, I mean, I'm curious about a couple things. I thought the Hawks did really great work on the offensive boards the first time that these two teams played each other. I was looking it up as you were asking me that question. They're 7th in the league in offensive rebound rate, which is a really strong number. They turn you over, which is like the Knicks, generally speaking, have been a low turnover team, but we've also seen them have their bouts with turnover issues. And the other thing about the Hawks is like they want to get to the rim. Like they're 6th in the league in terms of frequency of shots at the rim, which is actually similar. It's not how you think a Trae Young team is going to play. You think a Trae Young led team is going to put up a ton of threes. They're 21st in the league in terms of 3-point frequency, and they're actually 2nd from the bottom in terms of above the break threes. So they really don't put up a ton of threes, but they pound you inside. And I think that's an interesting matchup for this Knicks team, because you don't, with Karl-Anthony Towns at the 5, think of them as a team that is like going to be good with rim protection. And yet, over like once you get past like the first 7 games of the season, they've been really good protecting the rim. Let go a little of the rope a little bit against the Magic, but it was after the game was already kind of decided. So I think it's an interesting matchup. I think I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think it should be a good one there. Go ahead,
as it relates to contending for not the cup title, but we'll call it the real title, because I think more people will be on board with that one. The chip, yes. Yeah. But as it relates to the formula the Knicks are going about this season with, in terms of getting their championship aspirations in order, what's your comfort level right now with the disparity in offense and defense? Because they're first in offense, they're up to 18th in defense now. And I think you want to historically, you want to be in that top sort of 12 sweet spot, and maybe even a little higher than that, to be honest. Now, I don't know how attainable that's going to be, but it is kind of a different NBA. And it looks like it's going to be an elite offense all season long. It's the best Knicks offense I've ever seen. But what's your comfort level with that disparity right now?
It's the best Knicks offense in history. It's a tough question, because if you I'm gonna like actually hone in on the actual question you're asking. It's about you're asking about the disparity. So a lot of people are talking about, well, the defense is bad. Yes, the defense has been bad, although it's been better of late. The thing that's interesting to me is the only reason, and you obviously alluded to this, that the disparity is so large is because this is a historically great offense. And I've been talking about it a lot in the last week on my shows. Jared Dubin, who writes a great newsletter, Last Night in Basketball, has been writing about this a few times, in which he's been comparing the league's best offenses this year, belonging to the Knicks, the Celtics, and the Cavs, not like just to other historical or other teams throughout history in terms of just the raw numbers, but how they rank against other teams throughout history in terms of where they are relative to the rest of the league. And the Knicks offense relative to the rest of the league this year is according to what he's dug up, one of the 10 greatest offenses of all time. And actually it's like more like one of the top 5. So when you have that kind of offense, I think the next question becomes very interesting to me, and you kind of already touched on it, which is like, where do you need to be in terms of your ranking of like, what does your defense actually need to be? And I'm not sure I care as much. I mean, they need to be like above a certain level, but I'm not sure I care as much about the ranking as much as I do can they put together repeatable stretches of games against good teams where their defense is like locked in and kind of dictating the terms of engagement? And I think you saw that. I mean, you saw it a couple nights ago against the Pelicans, but the Pelicans are awful. But I think you saw that against the Magic. Now, the Magic are a bottom 10 offense too, but like they have a formula that works for them. And I think the Knicks like kind of took it to them when the Magic had the ball.
Yeah.
So that's what I care about. Like, and obviously, like at the end of the day, it really probably does come down to like, all right, how are you going to defend Boston? Can you slow down Boston at all? Can you make Boston sweat? Not that I don't want to disrespect the Cavs. I don't want to disrespect the Bucks or the whoever else you want to say, but like Boston is such a unique animal, and I frankly don't know that any defense could hope to really like certainly not stop them, but like could even really slow them down with how comfortable they are taking threes. So it's such a difficult question to ask, and I think at the end of the day, for me personally, I'm just like I love the fact that their offense is as good as it is. I'm like that gives me the most hope. I would rather ride with one of the greatest offenses ever, and by the way, one of the most versatile offenses because they can score in a lot of different ways, and be like, all right, let me roll the dice that the defense 4 out of 7 games in a series is going to be good enough. I'd rather that than like have a really really good defense and a really good offense, but like not anything that like a good defensive team could shut down. Because that's the other thing about Boston and a couple of the other teams out there, like. You know, they have a lot of weapons that they could throw at you. It's a great question, and it is the question, you know, about this team.
It is I agree with Bryan. It is the question about this team, as good as this offense has been. And you know, I think you and I were talking about this a couple of weeks ago, J Mac, and that you know, like, man, how much better can this offense get? And they've gotten a lot better in the last 3 weeks or so. And this was with what I'm about to get to now, with Mikal Bridges struggling. This was with Mikal Bridges struggling, and now we see the last couple of games he seemed to get right against the Pelicans. He was fine against the Magic too. Do you think he's starting to get right? Or I have this thing with Bridges, right? I wasn't as much worried about the shooting. What concerned me more with Bridges was his effort on defense. He was dying on screens. He's not fighting through screens in the way he used to. That's been more of the concern for me with Bridges. Where are you on Bridges? Do you think the offense is coming around, or are you still concerned about his defense?
Well, I do think the offense is coming around. He's still not going to the rim, and he's still not seeking contact.
Or getting to the line, right?
Yeah. Like I know he's gotten to the line. I think he got to the line a couple games ago, and he should have gotten to the line against the Magic, but they weirdly didn't call a foul on a play that should have. Well, whatever, neither here nor there. But like, I was never really worried about his offense. You know, I know the shot looked kind of funky, but like the guy has been such a good pro for such a long time. He says he always tinkers with the shot. It seems like he was in his head a little bit. I trusted that was going to come around. And where I am curious about the offense now, though, with him is like the home road splits are very stark. I don't know if you guys have looked at this. He's shooting like
I have.
Yeah, he's shooting like 55% at home and like 40% on the road. So we'll see if maybe that could start to normalize. The defense, for the defense to work, to go back to the previous question, for them to be a good enough defense to win a championship, he needs to be, if not an all defense level player, he needs to be like pretty close to that, right?
Yeah.
He needs to be like one of the 10 to 15 best wing defenders in the NBA. And that we have not seen. I think he's been okay of late. I think he's been okay. But like, you're not seeing the disruption at the point of attack. But then I look at it and I'm like, well, is he just maybe like biding his time? You know, like he's a vet. He knows it's a long season. He knows what happens he's been to the finals. He knows what happens in April and May and June. That's what matters, not what happens in December and January and February. So I'm like, unless he just lost the ability to be that level of defender, which like, why would he have? The guy's, what is he, 27 years old, 28 years old? Like that just, I don't know. So I'm like more concerned about the defense like you, Dex, but I'm still like, man, I gotta think he's going to figure that out eventually.
Yeah, I guess that's how I felt about it on the offense. I was not worried about the offense at all. I do think and I'm glad you brought that up because I'd seen that data recently. The home road splits are very intriguing. I will say in that part. I'm very interested in that. I just want to hit one other thing that goes with what Bryan just brought up and you talked about. Bryan had said, they're up to 18th in defense overall in the league right now. And I get it. They held the Pelicans, who were terrible, to 85 points. You hold the Magic, who are not a great offensive team, but have been playing well defensively, to 106 points. Are you seeing anything over those two games? And I guess you could throw Charlotte in there, also not a good team. Are you seeing anything in those games where you say, hey, they're on the right track? They're improving defensively. I'm starting to see better communication. I'm starting to see better effort. Do you think they're getting better defensively, J-Man?
Yeah, I think the rotations have been better of late. Because that, to me, yes, it was the point of attack. The point of attack is what everybody sees. But, they were rotating because the point of attack was going poorly. And there was just sometimes, whether it was the second rotation or the third rotation or whatever rotation, just wasn't being made. And there were a lot of times, I think, over the first, 17, 18, 19 games where you saw a lot of confusion. I think there's been a lot less confusion of late. So that's important. The timing of the rotations has been much better. And I got to tell you, it may sound crazy. Karl Anthony Towns really impressed me last night against the Magic defensively. I thought and this is kind of going to probably come off the wrong way because it's going to sound like it's I'm suggesting that he's a bad defender, but he's not a great defender. He competed,
Right.
He competed. He attempted to make life difficult, but just being active on his feet, having his hands up, it's those little things. And where their defense has gotten into the most problems this year is not that he goes out there and he's not trying or he doesn't care. That's not what it is. But he'll go up there and it'll be a show and recover, or, a hard hedge, whatever terminology you want to use. And he'll just kind of be there. And he's not making anybody's life harder, right? On offense. And you can't have that. If you're, and that's why I think the first thing that they tried out of the gate was drop. And oh, by the way, what did they employ a lot against the Magic? Shout out to DJ Zulo, who had a great Knicks Film School film session today. They did a lot of drop. So I think the formula for success moving forward, it revolves around Towns. If you could just get him to be passable, just be an average NBA center, in whatever, and do it with some different schemes. We saw him. I had my favorite moment of last night may have been he switched on to Franz Wagner with 7 or 8 seconds left on the clock and held his ground, forced a tough three from Franz, didn't go in. There should be some switching. Be comfortable letting him switch occasionally. He just needs to be engaged, fully engaged. And for him, it can't be 75% or 80%. That's the unfair part, right? Because he doesn't have that kind of skill level. For him, it kind of almost needs to be 95%. Like you saw when he was against Jokic, right? You saw 100% from Karl Anthony Towns in that game because he's going up against the guy he thinks is as his equal, right? The guy he competes against. If you see that in every game of a playoff series, that level of defense from him, I really just don't think that there's another team that should be considered a definitive favorite over this team. Boston, flip a coin, but that's right. It.
I mentioned earlier before you got on here that I was actually impressed with Cat's offense, not from the standpoint of the overall productivity, but going up against Mo Wagner and actually putting up shots, which is not something that a lot of NBA bigs, we were talking about this earlier, where I was hey, he's a dude his toughness, he'll elbow you in the back, he'll put you in a chokehold or whatever the case may be, and then you might get the ball and be all right, I'm only taking 10 today, and hopefully I make 6 and be done with it. And he put up 18 shots, was aggressive, was annoyed, had the famous turnaround jumper that has since gone viral where he made the face. And I came away from that Cat has been damn near almost too physical this year.
That's what that's the thing that I think a lot of fans were under this misconception about him, that he's soft or he shies away from big matchups. That's never from my vantage point. That's never been a problem with him. The problem with him is like silly fouls, right?
Yes.
Yep. So I've been saying this,
and also to some
Yeah.
people how he appears to conduct himself.
Yeah.
Depending, like non-basketball related.
Yeah, I know, but even that, and I've said this before, and I'll say it to you guys. Like he talks a lot. Like he's cool with giving interviews. He's like an open book. And when you talk that much, you're probably going to say something that is at some point where it's going to like raise some eyebrows. And I just think like there's like it's almost like a happy-go-luckiness to him. And so I think when he says something that doesn't come out the right way, it like lends itself to people making it into a thing that because I don't know if I'm describing it the right way.
No, but
like,
I get it because like you're talking about somebody who like he's been introspective, like, in interviews and things like that. Like he's given his actual personality to us, and we're kind of like, oh wait, we want access, but like, yo, you're kind of corny. The same thing we did to Chris Bosh, who's like famously a great interview. Who's famously a great interview, who was also labeled soft by Skip Bayless and others.
Yep.
And who actually, when you watch him play in big spots, like there was a certain toughness to him where he would hit big shots, get big rebounds. He didn't always have the gaudy scoring numbers. Towns is a better scorer at this point than Bosh was toward the end, obviously. But like, I feel like that's sort of like what we're looking at here, where I think people just kind of think he's corny, but he could be a lot more harmful than that, I guess is the point.
It's maybe a small thing, and maybe it'll get lost to Towns. I was in the Garden the night that they almost came back against the Bulls, and they should have won that game. When he banged knees against Zach LaVine in the final minute of that game,
and the last guy you want to bang knees with, by the way.
Yeah, well, yeah, but like he couldn't get up.
Yeah,
and that dude stayed in the game.
He did not come out.
Yeah,
that to me was like, okay, you're good, you're fine with me. Like I know you're not a perfect player, but that showed me so much that night when he did that. And I think he missed one game, and that's the only game he's missed all year. He's been questionable a few times. Like the dude cares. And I think he's plenty tough. And if he keeps playing like this, I think he's going to be just fine.
J-Mac, I think it's a good point you brought up with that. Excuse me, that I think will get lost in time for people because there's so many people that had the soft label on him. Our coworker Stephen Bondi did a fantastic article, I think, dispelling a lot of those truths.
I loved that piece.
Yeah, it was a great, and it's funny. Before it was written, I talked to Steph just about it. We were talking off about it, any notions of people thinking he's soft. And I had the same perception of you. I watched enough of the Timberwolves.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, this guy's in soft. He make some dumb fouls and makes you want to pull your hair out at times, especially in the playoffs. Absolutely. But to your point, I want to say this from having been in the locker room a couple of times, been around the team this year. Yeah, I really think he cares. I really think he cares about being back in New York. I think he really cares about being around his family, his Dominican roots. I think a lot of that matters. I think he's looking forward to playoff games in the Garden. Now, he's going to have to perform. I'm not saying that's going to mean that he's going to perform at the biggest stage, but he's going to have to do that. But the question I have for you, and Bryan kind of set this up in a good way too, and you see it in the lower third here is, are the Knicks fans, are the Knicks getting the best ever version of Cat that we've seen since he's came into the league? Is this the best version of Cat that we've seen?
Yeah. It's like an easy yes. It's almost too easy of a yes.
That was almost as quick as you saying no to the NBA Cup. Almost as quick.
Well, because sorry. I mean, I'm just, you know me, Dex. I'm not going to beat around the bush.
Which I love, man.
No, I mean, like, look, he's made All NBA twice, I think.
Yep.
Third team both times. But at back when the positional designation still came into play, and he made it at center, so like take it maybe with a little grain of salt. I think I know he's never looked this good as like within an offense before. And I say that intentionally because I was just talking about this with James Edwards on my pod, like he was on a top 5 offense in Minnesota under Tibbs, and like that was the Jimmy Butler team. Obviously, it didn't go so well, but like in terms of him knowing what he brings to the table and leveraging those skills and not dipping into stuff that takes away from like that rising tide that lifts all ships. Like, yeah, are there a couple, like he's had a couple drives where it's like, you could have maybe been a little bit more patient there or something, but like how many plays on offense at least can you criticize? Can you look at it and be like, man, that was a terrible, showing from Cat. Like he's been so good. And then like we talked about the silly fouls, like, yeah, there's been a few here and there, but I don't know that it's really come to rear its ugly head. And we're through 21 games. So I think that part of it's great. And like, look, he's playing with Jalen Brunson. This should be the best version of him. Like a stat that I had no idea about until I was on with Dane Moore, who covers the Timberwolves before the season, that like Town or Anthony Edwards last season assisted Karl Anthony Towns on like, I think it's 8 pick and pop threes for the entire year.
Wow.
And like,
sounds right.
That's not to disparage Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards is a brilliant player, and he's turning into a really strong playmaker. He averaged over 5 assists last year, and I don't think there was like anything personal or like it was purposeful. I just don't think those two ever gelled in a significant way, and it's in large part because it wasn't Karl Anthony Towns going to set the screens for Anthony Edwards. It was Rudy Gobert. So, and it was Towns was oftentimes off in the corner during those sets. So this is like, man, he is integrated. Like when the Knicks offense has looked its best, I would argue it's been with Towns as the centerpiece and everybody kind of working off of Towns and around Towns. Like we had that fun clip last night of him going like between, I don't know what the hell he was doing, between the legs, and he shoveled it off to Mikal Bridges in the corner, and Bridges missed, unfortunately. But like, I love watching him as the centerpiece of the offense. And then defensively, like, yeah, it's a work in progress, but like you knew it was going to be a work in progress. So that's fine.
Yeah, no, you did. I want to thank everybody for watching with us live here on New York Got Game Knicks Weekly Live, joined by our guy, Jonathan Macri. Thank you for everybody checking in. I see my guy, Greg, checking in.
Shout out to Greg.
Showing us some love. All my boys working together. Now, Greg, for people who don't know, myself and Bryan go way back with Greg. Greg is one of my mentees.
One of my college classmates.
One of his college classmates for Bryan. So Greg and I go way back. Greg is a huge supporter of Knicks Film School. He's always in there with the super chats, giving you love. And Greg is a diehard Knicks fan. It's my guy. Shout out to Greg.
I had no idea about any of this. He's been super chatting for years, and he's so generous, and his comments are always really thoughtful and insightful. And now I know a little bit about him. I'm very happy.
Greg's one of my guys. One of my mentees, like a little brother. I would say so. So Greg is there. Best case scenario, Greg said, I think defense get close to the middle of the pack at full strength, but this will never be last year's team. I agree. This team to me feels like D'Antoni's Suns. Well, look, offensively, I won't say 7 seconds or less, not quite that, but offensively, this Knicks team is damn good, man. They're damn good offensively. J-Mac, one more thing before I get you out of here. We appreciate your time so much. When you look at the rest of this homestand and the Knicks, they've got the Hornets, they've got the Pistons here. They have a chance to finish this homestand 4-0. What do you want to see from this team over these next 2 games in having that killer mentality to finish this homestand strong before they go on the road and then back home for the NBA Cup matchup against the Hawks, which you are so eagerly anticipating? Can't wait.
Very eagerly. Man, I can't stop thinking about the comp to the Suns. I'm going to be thinking about that when I hit the pillow tonight. It's an interesting comp. Anyway, so what am I looking for? How do you come out of the gate? How do you come out of the gate in the first quarter? What kind of and like we were all a little worried at the start of the Magic game because they were down 9-2, and I didn't. It wasn't like terrible defense that they played on any of the first 3 threes, but it was like, you're like, oh man, they're really not going to be locked in for this one. And then within 3 minutes, it's like, oh, okay, they're there. It just took them a little while.
Yeah.
So I just want to see, like, we've seen the team come out this year, and we know by the middle of the first quarter, I'll say like what kind of game it's going to be. And and again, I think those are part of the growing pains where you're gonna have your ups and downs. I want that to be behind us, because the beautiful thing, a lot of people romanticize like Greg's talking about last year's team. A lot of people romanticize that team. Like they weren't a great defense. Like they got scored upon, and they weren't always a great offense, especially after the injuries. But the thing about them is like they came out every night, and they may have been missing shots. Like they may have been maybe a little sloppy here and there, but like they came out and the intent was there, the purpose was there, the game plan was there. You knew you were going to get a commensurate effort across the board. This year, that has not, up until the last few games, that has not been there. I want that to be back to like not 10 out of every 10 games, but 17 out of every 20 games. How about that? Something like, 8 out of every 10, something like that. So you're playing two bad teams. Go out there, put your foot down. If the shots go down, great. If the shots don't go down, all right, maybe it's a closer game than it should be. But just go out there and play like you mean it. And we know what that looks like.
And no LaMelo Ball is the expectation for this first game. Very forgiving. This sets off a very forgiving December schedule.
Well,
that's the other piece of this. Like they can really get right this month.
I don't know if you saw it was NBA.com had an article that came out, forgetting the person who wrote it earlier today, that they have the easiest opponent win percentage in the league in the month of December.
Looks like it.
It's opponents have a 38, I think, 0.6 winning percentage, and there's like a gap between the Knicks and the team with the next easiest slate, which is actually
I try not to even get into that, because whenever you start thinking about that, that's when they drop a couple and then you're pissed.
Maybe,
like,
but Dex, you see it like Charlotte, Detroit, Washington twice, a decapitated Pelicans team. Like, what are we talking about?
Now they should get right, but J-Mac, and I know you. I've known you long enough to know.
Yeah,
we're the same, and one game at a time, man. Because I know it sounds like coach speak, but one game at a time.
No, but
game at a time.
But here's the thing: it's not just one game at a time. It's yes, it is one game at a time, but it is, and yes, I'm gonna quote Tibbs here. You respect your opponent, and this year above all years, where you were supposed to have 5, 6, 7 teams that were supposed to be in this Cooper Flag thing from like day one. It's basically it's Washington. It's
Utah,
the Pelicans. The Pelicans, because of the injuries.
And the Jazz, sorry.
And guess what? The Jazz freaking beat us.
I know.
So, it's like all these other teams, like the Raptors. The Raptors were sitting there at like 2-10 or 11, 2-12 for a while. Well, guess what? They've rattled off. They're like a 500 team over their last several weeks with RJ playing like the way he's playing. Yeah. It's like it doesn't matter. It almost doesn't matter who you're playing. Like we saw it against the Nets. Those 2 Nets games, those were 2 hard freaking games.
Yeah, they got the memo after they started to get injuries out of nowhere.
You're telling me, like, I hope they learn their lesson against Charlotte. Like, okay, we know what this team can bring to the table, and they take that seriously. But like Detroit, I know they didn't have a great showing against the Bucks last night, but like Detroit goes out there, like they're a decent team.
They compete.
Yeah.
And
you don't think RJ's gonna be motivated? Maybe
he will be. He will be. He will be. For sure on Monday. I expect him to be very, very motivated. We'll see. Look, Knicks have won 13 out of the first 21 games. It looks like they're trending upward. I get it. They have the easiest schedule in the league in December. Respect your opponent. I'm with Tibbs on this. Don't disrespect the game. Don't disrespect your opponents. Yeah. J-Mac, what do you guys have cooking up? I know you guys always have something going. I don't know when the next watch party is. I was at the last one. I had a fantastic time at T-Squared Social. It was good hanging out with you and the guys. It was fun. What's next for Knicks Film School?
So definitely a watch party coming up towards or the end of December 21st. And I think we actually have 2 scheduled for the end of the month. I'm hopeful that if they make, for as much as I say I didn't care about.
Here we go.
If they make the semis, I would like to try to put something together. So keep your eyes out on all the Knicks Film School social channels for that. And just go over, please, anybody watching who hasn't already seen it, go over and check out our latest film session. This one is from DJ Zulo. He broke down what we saw in the Magic game. We've been either him or Benji Ridholtz have been putting up film sessions once a week. They've been alternating those. That is the best content, basketball content you can get anywhere. And it is absolutely free. Just head over to the Knicks Film School YouTube channel, check it out, give it a like if you want. But yeah, man, happy to be on with you guys. This was fun. And yeah, like you said, hopefully they keep it going.
No, thank you, man. Always a huge fan of what you do. And listen, I love the fact that even though you aren't a fan of the NBA Cup, and if the Knicks do get to the semis, you're still out here doing it for the people. I like that. See, I respect that.
I'll be excited. I'm not saying I won't be excited. I will be excited. Of course, I'm excited after every win, but like,
I hope they go to the final so I could just text. I hope they go to the final so I could just text you. I will text you before and after. I need to know your mood before. I need to know everything.
All I'll be thinking about is if they're tired, because like the Lakers last year after they won it, they were kind of dragging for a little bit, right?
They're also old, but yes, I hear you.
They're also old. There's that too. LeBron actually looks old finally this year.
So. Yeah, well,
Father Time comes for us. First comes for us all. It always does. J Mac, we appreciate you, man. We'll have you back on another live. I'm sure you'll be in studio with me at some point soon. Keep up the great work you do at Knicks Film School, and go Knicks. Go win that NBA Cup for Jonathan Macri. That's all we want to see. That's it. That's all I'm asking. Just do it for your boy. He's doing it for the people. Do it for your boy. That's all. That's all I'm asking. Thanks, J Mac.
Thank you, guys.
No problem. Catch you later. That's Jonathan Macri, the dean of Knicks Film School. Check him out on Knicks Film School, their YouTube channel, doing a fantastic job there and all the great work that he and that team does. We love the Knicks Film School guys. Dave Dollar, thank you for checking in. We appreciate you too. Everybody watching, as I said, wherever you're watching, we have people checking on YouTube today. You're watching on Twitter. You're watching on Facebook. We've had that as well. We appreciate you for checking in. Greg, Jay Quaza, Mikel Wells, we see you. F. Trae Young is what I be chanting. Yeah, that's what a lot of people be chanting inside the Garden when Trae Young plays. I expect a lot of that, especially after Trae Young's comments following the Knicks loss to them in Atlanta earlier this season. I expect the Knicks faithful to be rather raucous for this one. Okay, Brian, you know what time it is. We do this every week. Mm-hmm. Real or not? We like to talk to you about what's going on with the Knicks or the things that we're seeing real or not. First thing I want to talk about is Jericho Sims. A lot of people out here.
Oh, this would be quick for me.
A lot of people out here, okay? There's a lot of people hating on Jericho Sims this year. And I'll admit, through the first 10 games, he was looking shaky. He's been better the last 10, 11, 12 games or so. I'd say he's been better. But some numbers came out early in this week. This is before the Magic game. I want to be clear about the data I'm about to present. This is per NBA tracking data, okay? The leaderboard, not leaderboard, like it's a cyborg, among centers on defensive field goal percentage within 5 feet of the rim, including 15 plus games played. Jericho Sims is number one in the league. 33% is what the field goal percentage is against him with shots within 5 feet of the rim. So I ask you this, Bryan Fonseca, Jericho Sims, the numbers seem to say this. I also want to add the next closest person to him is Jaren Jackson Jr. That is our boy, Gerard Hector. That is his boy. Shout out to him. Jaren Jackson Jr., 44.2% field goal shooting percentage. So sizable gap between Jericho Sims and Jaren Jackson Jr. Is Jericho Sims the NBA's best paint defender? Should we put more respect on Mr. Sims' name?
No, he's not.
That was as quick as Macri saying he didn't care about the NBA Cup.
No. Next question.
You got nothing for that? You're not respecting the advanced metrics?
He's not the NBA's best paint defender. That's like maybe he's the Knicks' best paint defender, but also he's playing against mostly backups. Like not all the time, but mostly backups. So like it could be skewed a little bit. So,
this is true.
I don't think this is real at all.
This is a no. This might be the quickest real or not question I've had for Brian.
Well, we're over an hour already, so we gotta also,
we're trying to wrap it up, folks. We're trying to wrap it up. All right. Other one I have for you. This is about Brunson and Cat. They are both averaging over 25 plus points per game. Now, No duo, guard and center duo has done this since Kobe and Shaq. So you're going back to 2004, guys, since this has been done. Do you see Brunson and Cat doing that this season, becoming the first guard center duo to average over 25 a game since Kobe and Shaq? Real or not? Does this happen, Bryan?
I'm gonna say no, because 25 is the number, and they're both barely at 25 now. I think they can both get close, but you're talking about 60 more games roughly of a sample size. Like I think they can get very close though. I think both of them are going to hover around this. I'd be a little surprised if they remain above it, just because, like, if you also just go through the numbers, like the efficiency is just off the charts for each of them. So that's going to be hard to sustain too. I also don't think like this is going to mean, like, if they don't get this milestone, that the Knicks are all of a sudden bad. Like, I don't think it matters to that degree. Like, you want to see it because of history and things like that. But, and also it's the new NBA, which means, like, with modern offenses and things of that nature, you can see this from this duo. But I think it'll be close, but no is my lead.
Do you think one of the two averages over 25 points per game? Because asking for both is asking for a lot. I agree with you on that. But do you think one of the two? And if so, which one of the two do you think gets it done?
I kind of want to say Towns.
I'm inclined to agree
because of what we just talked about with J-Mac in terms of, like, I agree with when they play through him, and we discussed this. Like, I think he's more in line to probably do it.
Yeah, I'm inclined to do that too. And I think it also goes with something we talked about. I think this was either the last Real or Not or a couple of Real or Nots ago. I see Brunson's assist numbers going up, and I see him being more efficient, but not taking as more shots and not needing to score as much at times. So if I had to say which one averages over the 25 per game, I would go with Cat too. Because I'm with you. Do I see Brunson being close? I do. But, like, if you told me the other day Brunson's numbers were 24.2 points per game or 23.9 or something, wouldn't shock me. Wouldn't shock me at all. All right, last one we got. Look, OG Anunoby, he's been balling out. Will OG Anunoby make the All-Star team this season? The numbers are good. Not sure if he's still over 21 points a game. Is he? He was at one point a couple of games ago. That might have dipped down with the struggles he had.
17 and a half.
He's at 17 and a half now?
For the season, 17
for the season. Yeah, it was at one point. This was maybe in the middle of that road trip. He was over 21. It's dropped down a bit because he had some rough shooting games and scoring games there. So down to 17 and a half. I feel like he's been fringe all-star-esque or ish, I should say. I would argue, in my opinion, he's been the most important Knick or most valuable Knick. I think that's you could possibly say in terms of his two-way play.
Two-way, yeah.
But does he make an all-star team this season? You know, I know Knicks fans here, and you guys can comment as well, too, beside Bryan. I know you want to see him make an all-star team, but does OG make an all-star team this season?
He has an outside shot because the East is just a mess. I don't think the Knicks are getting 3.
I don't see that
unless they really take care of business in December. I don't think they're getting 3. I think Cleveland has a shot at getting 3, but I don't even think they're going to get 3 necessarily, right? Like, I think that's probably going to be Donovan, Mitchell, Evan Mobley, and then move on. I think Jared Allen will get some consideration. Darius Garland will get some consideration, but that's how I would lean. Boston, we'll see. But I think Boston's ultimately going to get 2. They got 2 last year. I think the Knicks will get 2. I think OG Anunoby has a real case though, and if you go down, like, there aren't a lot of teams that are going to get 2. It's probably only like the Cavs, the Celtics, and the Knicks. Orlando's not, because Paolo's missed too many games, and the Bucks probably could because of the individual successes of Damian Lillard and Giannis, despite their play so far as a team. Although they've been the hottest team in the league lately. So
what's crazy is if all those teams you mentioned get 2, right? That's 8 of the 12 players on the roster, because the NBA foolishly refuses to expand to 15 for the All-Star roster, which still makes no sense to me. Yeah, I don't see OG getting it as good as he's been. I think he would have to be clear-cut the second best player on the team to get it. And I just think Towns and Brunson, their efficiency has been so good. I don't see it happening. I just don't see it happening. Oh, here we go. Somebody checking in. 96 Till. Like the name. Hart should have a chance too. His numbers are crazy for a guard. Look, I love some Josh Hart. Love how he plays. Bryan and I were talking about this the other day on the phone. Love how he plays. Best rebounding guard in the league. And I know we put the guard and asterisk there. I hear you. But it's not happening. Like, and Josh Hart is shooting stupid numbers from 2, right? Like crazy efficient with the finishing. Has had a really good season. I love Josh Hart. I think he's one of the best role players in the league, hands down. I love what he does. I don't see him making an all-star team. If for Josh Hart to make an all-star team, the Knicks would have to, by the time you get to the all-star break, they'd have to be a team on a historic NBA pace, like on the 73-9 Warriors pace, like that kind of pace of start, and just dominate the East. That's when you usually get 3 or 4 all-stars. You have to have that kind of regular season. And I mean, unless the Knicks just, which they should, again, go back. They should feast in December. We'll see what the record is at the end of December, and it could be really, really good if they take care of business. But yeah, I don't see Hart getting it too. Hart should get love for what he does. We need a role player of the year award. That should be you know what I'm saying? Like that should be an award. Why have we not done this? Like
it used to be the most improved player, but then they started giving it to stars who then become superstars.
Which I know you have a problem with. I'm sure we'll get into this another day. But I feel like there should be somebody who's like clearly a 5th option or lower. I'll even say put some 4th options in there on a team that's not sometimes like not a 6-man would be nice too. Sometimes 6-man could win it, but not a 6-man, or it could be a 7th, 8th. I don't care. You could be anywhere 5 down, I think, and you're a glue guy. I think he would have a great shot at winning that award. Yeah, you got to really contribute to winning. I think you'd have a great shot at that award. So we'll see. All right. So we're going no with OG as an all-star. We all no's. I think this might be the first no's. Everything was no for everybody.
Yeah.
No to Jericho Sims as the NBA's best paint defender. No to Brunson and Cat averaging 25 plus points per game for the season. And no to OG Anunoby as an all-star. A lot of no's. Another
second one's a lean, to be fair. Also, the joke I was going to say was that the award that role players win is probably the Community Assist Award, but even that's been given to some stars over the years.
That is true. That is very true. A lot of no's on this show today, including when we asked Jonathan Macri if he cared about the NBA Cup. That was a resounding, very quick no. So there you have it. All right, that does it for this edition of New York Got Game Knicks Weekly Live. Next week, we'll be back with you on Thursday. So we'll be talking to you after the NBA Cup game that I care about. Bryan cares about. Jonathan Macri does not, but we do care about it. We'll talk to you about that. We'll know if the Knicks are going to the semis in Vegas or not. We'll have a lot to break down. We'll also talk about their other upcoming matchups throughout the month after that NBA Cup. We'll know if they advance, whether they'll go to Vegas, whether they'll play some other teams before they play Minnesota on the 19th. A lot to talk about that. Hopefully the week after, we're hoping to get a really good guest to preview that big game out in Minnesota. That should be a good one. We have a really good guest planned, a good friend of the show, friend of myself and Bryan that should be joining. We're hoping we have that person on to help preview that. Next week, we'll also be joined by another guest. We'll let you guys know more about that. But want to thank everybody for sharing. This weekly show continues to grow every week. New York Got Game continues to grow every week. Next week's episode on Monday that will drop, we'll have my guy, Andrew Salop, who hosts Combos Court. We'll be talking about the Knicks. Can they win the whole thing in the NBA Cup? We'll also be giving out some grades to Knicks players through this portion of the season and what we think about them. So we'll be doing that. And then also hopefully another preview of the game against the Atlanta Hawks, hopefully having a guest on that as well. For our fantastic producer, Jeff Stansbury, who did a great job on the show as always. And today, our guest, Jonathan Macri, my guy, Bryan Fonseca, checking in. I'm Dexter Henry. We want to thank all you guys for rocking with us tonight, and we will see you next week on New York Got Game, Knicks Weekly Live. Peace, y'all.
And thanks for watching